All right. I'm going to go through the sketchbook.
All right.
This is the sketchbook I started when I started the movie.
What was the initial idea? That's what I didn't really hear.
That was from a kind of a hallucination, not a drug hallucination, but it was after my mother passed away. I went to Arizona, and I brought her ashes there, and I hiked around in the desert for a couple days with one of my buddies, and trying to find a perfect place to spread her ashes. And I'd been going like a couple days without sleep at that point, and then, the stress of it was getting to me too. And I was sitting up with my camera on this mountain I climbed up. And I got to the top and I was looking down, and I think I started to fall asleep, or I squinted my eyes for some reason. I was probably starting to pass out. And I noticed a shadow going out into the desert. It looked like a girl. It looked like a girl's body. And at the end there was pigtails on it, and it reminded me of this photo I had of my mother when she was a kid. And then it stuck with me. I don't go for mysticism. I don't believe that was her or anything like that, but it stuck with me because I started almost using it to make fun of myself. And then the image started making its way into little things, like it started showing up in my paintings, it started showing up in the drawings. And then after a while, I just started writing about it. I'm not a conceptual artist. I just go with what's happening in my life and I move with things, and it just kept occurring. So I kept going with it. If I craved it, I put it in the work, It's like other things that reoccur in my stuff, like bees and whatnot.
And when did you decide to make it a film?
I think after I had like about 95 typed pages done for a script. I thought I was going to build and do these elaborate set things, and I just realized that when I started doing that, it wouldn't even be a film anymore. It would be about these objects. So I leaned back from it, and I made the objects separately, the sketchbooks and the paintings. I made them separate from the film. I felt a need to do them, but I didn't feel a need that they needed to be part of the movie, really. I go in, and if I like part of something, I tear it out. I freed myself from mistakes. I freed myself from having to conceptualize or determine what I'm going to do. I can improvise my way through it. This isn't built for being perfect. It's built for little ideas, wiggling pieces around. Like I won't know where I'm going with it. And then 6 months later, I'll look at it and go, oh, I needed a brush stroke in the bottom left-hand corner. So I have to take my time on them. I mean, they look fast gesturally, but they take longer than my tighter work. My approach to color is purely, now this one isn't finished yet. Here's an unfinished piece. I'm still working on that. My approach to color is purely strategic. I don't use color symbolically. It's purely strategic to move the eye around. Most pieces, it doesn't even occur to me to even add color to them, and I choose not to. Sometimes I don't sit down and assume I'm working in color that day. She shows up in different places. Down here she's a silhouette, she's grass, she's coming from the ground. Here it's some sarcastic image of her appearing like some mystical spirit, It's like there's sarcasm running all through it. I just love making fun of mysticism. But at the same time, I make fun of it so much that sometimes when I got rainbows and sunbeams, sometimes the more I put in, the more I like it. Even though I'm using them sarcastically, sometimes it appeals to me in some way. I mean, that's kind of what the movie's about. There'll be this thing where I'm mocking the viewer for wanting sunbeams coming through the clouds, but I'm putting sunbeams through the clouds. I'm doing it because I want to do it, and then I'm making fun of myself and the viewer for wanting it.
Or was there a progression through the sketchbook, like as you go, or
not logical? Not logically. You could see how she's developing eyes as it's going on. They're very faint at this point. They're little raisins, but and then you could see in the last few pages I started like realizing how dumb rainbows were. So I started doing like this dumb black line version of a rainbow.
An enormous amount of just energy thrown at something.
Can you pause for like 1 minute to take one break? I need to get some caffeine in me. I like that drawing. That makes me laugh. It looks so spiritual. Didn't start after I petted that whale, strangely. It wasn't until years after. You think touching a whale would cause you
It would cause you to draw away.
draw whales.
Talk about the first piece you made for the Pigtail Shadow.
By the way, I do have the photograph that I took. I did have have a camera with me, and I did photograph that shadow. I could see what I saw when I squinted. When I squint and look at that actual photograph, I can actually see what I thought I saw, because it really does look like a head and shoulders of a body with like a dress on it. But I was thinking that in the camera that it would show up. Like, I didn't realize, you know, you can't make the camera squint. But yeah, I did that piece. I can't remember if I did it weeks or months after. Time kind of compressed after that. I had a lot of deaths happen in the family all at once. Time kind of compressed. I would think that things happened a month ago, and it would turn out that they happened 2.5 years ago. And I was just doing an abstract, and I was doing some, just brushing some ink around on some paper, waiting for something to happen. And nothing happened. I wound up almost like filling the whole thing just full of ink. Nothing was happening much. And I just kept looking at it, and I just got out a pair of scissors, and I just cut out the shape of a little girl's head with pigtails. And then I just left it sitting on my drawing table for a few days, and I was still kind of depressed at that point. So I wasn't working a lot. So it sat there on the table, and then started to gain more and more resonance to me. And then I actually moved it and put it on another piece of paper and added some color to it and started thinking about that piece. And that was the piece that really kind of got me back into working again. So I would never sell that piece. That's a piece I'll always keep for myself. I can remember every line I drew on it because I hadn't drawn for quite some time. So that one's superior to all the rest of them because it was the real experience in a way, or at least the closest to it, that one and the actual photograph. Bees are another recurring one. That's been in my work for probably about 20 years now. And there was a hallucination attached to that one too. I'd been up once again. I was without sleep. I was in Brooklyn. I hadn't slept. I was working on a project, and it was a good 36 hours I'd worked on the piece. I started to fall asleep at the table and imagined the image of like my head being separated from my body, and it was a bumblebee. And I was going across the ocean, and there was nowhere to land. And it happened very quickly. It happened in probably 5 seconds. But I was just a bee. I was like just a fuzzy bee. And I was going across the ocean. And for some reason, I was looking at myself. But then I would switch, and I would be looking through the eyes of the bee. And I was going across the ocean, and I looked around, and there was nowhere to land. It almost seemed to be an analogy for like work. I don't go for symbolism. It's just over the years I've tried to, I haven't questioned it. You're just receptive for that 1 second for some reason, and something happens, and that stuff sticks with me. And the fact that I'm not a conceptual artist, I can let it stick with me. I don't wake up in the morning, watch CNN, and decide I'm doing a painting that's about whatever's going on in the news or whatever. I'm not conceptualizing or trying to speak for a group or commenting on anything really. I'm not really commenting on anything. I'm improvising, and I'm reacting to things that are like happening with me. If they're memes, if they're hallucinations, whatever it is. I just feel, to me, that it's pure to react to those sort of things, and I just react to them one after the other. I don't think about the relationship to the last piece. There's no narrative going through. There's no evolution happening. If there is, and sometimes it seems like there is, characters will change, certain things will show up. There is an evolution, but it's a natural one. It's not something that I consciously set down to do.
Compared to the work that most people right now, I think, would identify with Steve Cerio, have you kind of broken away from that tight work as part of this project, or as a result of this project?
This is how I've always worked. I've worked like this since I was out of school, since I was 21. Actually, even in college, I was working similar to this. It's developed over time. This is the way I actually draw. The other pieces, those ones I call like germ-free pieces, where I have the more polished line and everything, that was my attempt at it was a conscious effort to use polished line. It's all part of this sarcasm that runs through my work. And those pieces, to have the polish of those pieces, there's something about that where it's the sarcasm is stronger that way. Whereas like these looser pieces, there tends to be a bit of moodiness to it. When you have a loose brush stroke and washes, you tend to have a more moody feeling. Those pieces I was going more for, it was almost like making fun of happiness in a way, because it's like you can only hold on to those feelings for a very short time. And it was like a way of, I don't know if I was trying to record it. I was making fun of myself for wanting this like joy, like a Christmas morning kind of joy. I think I was mocking myself for that. And it's the same thing with the Magnificent Pigtail Shadow. The film is the same thing. I'm mocking myself and for wanting these things like the clouds opening up and the sunbeams coming down and a time-lapse shot of a two-leaf sprout coming from the ground, and the sunbeam lights up that part of the ground, and it's bright green, and the air is like sparkling, and the worms come out of the ground and gather around it, and I think those things are in my head. Obviously, I'm talking about them. I enjoy it. I mock myself for craving these things that I don't want to crave, because I don't go for mysticism. I don't go for any of that. And I know I can't maintain that. That's falsifying a future. That's falsifying a reality. That's not being in the moment. That's falsifying a future for yourself. And that to me seems wrong in every way. To falsify what's going to happen for you tomorrow or the day after, and you're not here, you're falsifying your future, you're falsifying your past, you're like inventing things to make yourself feel better. And I am doing it. I'm making things to make myself feel better, and then I shame myself for that action. I'm actually mocking myself for the art that I've chosen to do. That's part of the art, is a sarcasm directed at myself. It flip-flops back and forth on itself. I love thick prose. I love, Rimbaud and Verlaine, and I love that stuff. Well, what are these things describing when you're using over-the-top language? You're talking about things like very elaborate things that couldn't really happen. They're not part of reality. That's what makes great poetry good, is it's something you haven't experienced or you could never experience. So then when I put that in the film, I'm like, how am I going to use poetry in this in a way without it sounding sarcastic? And then I realized, well, it's okay if it sounds sarcastic. I mean it in a lot of cases in the film, but I'm making fun of the reality that the poetry is talking about. I know that's talking in circles, but that's what the film is. The sarcasm is directed at the whole idea of a falsified future. That's what the film is about.
The nature of reality.
Yeah, well, that's not reality. That's falsifying a future. That's a human thing. Dogs aren't sitting there thinking about going to heaven. They come across the corner. If there's a steak, they eat it. You're going to attain everything you wanted in your life in the future. You don't have it now, but you're going to have it in the future, and you're always being pulled towards that. You're not going to achieve that. You're not going to achieve roaming the earth like a bird and reacting. Why do we need that carrot all the time? Why can't we just go on? Why is there always this undefined, beautiful, glittery future always around the corner? Strange feeling. At least it is to me. I'm not talking about everybody's reality structure. I'm talking about my reality structure. Everyone has their own reality, the way they're seeing something. Everyone's seeing colors differently. Everyone's seeing the future differently. You do something, you're going back, looking at what you did. You're talking about the future, going into the past, worrying about the future, worrying about the past, about the future in the present while you're thinking about the future. And you flip-flop and you cross-reference. And I wanted that to come through in the film, where it's not in a straight line. It's going backwards and forwards.
I want to get back to the drawings really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this is an image that once this project is done, you'll move on from?
No, it'll continue. It'll show up in different places. It might not be as obvious later on. She may not be in the center frame anymore, but she'll be in there. I think she'll show up a lot in a lot of the pieces. It's not a different world. I mean, it's the earth. I'm not doing a painting of a foreign world, or it's the earth. There's clouds, and there's bees, and there's grass, and now there's the shadow of a little girl's head. That's sharing that reality too.
The drawings and paintings and collage and the film that you've made, is that a surrealist work?
it comes from the idea of improvisation. It comes from what happened with, you know, with jazz. What happened in jazz in the 60s is more akin to what I'm doing than than the surrealists did. But my work is irrational, where the rationality is my own,